Hi folks, Rich Johnston here from Garricks Camera House Group. Folks, welcome to my backyard on the beautiful Sunshine Coast, and we have a glorious day here today. And something that makes it a little bit more special is I have the Fujifilm GFX 50S Mark II. Now what makes this a little bit different to most of the medium format cameras that we've seen on the market? Well, it fits my hand. It's the very first of the medium format cameras that I've touched and felt and thought, gosh, you know, I could probably live with this camera. And I've wanted to fall in love with medium format cameras, and I've looked at the Pentax 645Z, I've had a look at the Hasselblads, but I just wonder, am I going to actually enjoy that camera in the field? They always feel to have that unusual boxy feel to it, as where the GFX 50S Mark II, it feels and touches just like a normal consumer camera. So folks, let's spend the afternoon together, let's put the camera through its paces, and let's not talk about the heavy tech specs. I'm sure this camera is not going to disappoint anybody who's after high resolution imagery. But how's it going to affect you in the field? Well, let's go and find out. Let's go take some photos together. Come on. Gosh folks, we're only 2 minutes into the photo walk, but I've got to say to you, there's something about this camera that feels very familiar. Everything seems to be in the same place as what you'd expect it to be. I haven't had to search for anything. The layout is just so user friendly. So folks, let's get into the nitty gritties a little bit. Who's going to buy this camera? Well, I guess Fuji are putting it towards somebody who's going to use it for more than just that basic average photograph. Sorry mate, look, we've got to get the old plane. So can we swing around? I can't miss out on the old plane. Hold everything. One of the most beautiful parts about living on somewhere like the Sunshine Coast. That was great. Well folks, we're only 2 minutes into our photo walk, but let me tell you straight away, the camera feels strangely familiar. Everything seems to be in a spot that you'd expect it to be. The command mode dial, the focus mode between continuous and the single spot focus lock recompose mode. Everything is so well laid out on the camera, I'm just starting to feel like almost like I've had it for a lot longer than I have. And that's the honest truth, folks. It really does feel like a camera that you could live with. So who is going to buy this camera? Well, typically medium format customer, high resolution. This is your landscape photographer, high-end portrait photographer. But if you had a camera which wasn't big and bulky like your standard medium format camera, you could start to use it as a lot more of an all-rounder. So let's think about the specs here. We've got a medium format camera and it shoots at 3 frames per second. Now it's been a long time since you or I have probably owned a camera that goes to only 3 frames per second, but let's see what that really is, and let's remind ourselves what 3 frames per second really is. I'm going to attempt to do some panning shots just to see how this camera goes in a sports photography mode. Let's try that. Okay, so we're going to set up for a typical panning shot here, folks. So one of the things that I'm really counting on here is the 5-axis image stabilization, that's in-body image stabilization in the camera. We're going to go for a panning shot, and what we need for that panning shot is a relatively slow shutter speed. Now for most of you, you're thinking, well, I know that that's usually a cutoff around about a 40th of a second when we aren't on a tripod, but let's really push this 5 axes of image stabilization. Let's see how far we can go. I'm going to start off with a shutter speed of a 40th of a second. Straight away, I love the fact that I can now point it in the direction I'm going to take that photograph. The simulated exposure that I see in the viewfinder is telling me that it's too bright, so I'm going to suck that up with a bit of aperture. Very easy to find. Switching now to the continuous focusing mode. I love that I don't have to troll through a menu to find these basic features that I need when I'm in the field. Okay, that's 3 frames a second. I've got to admit I have got used to much faster frame rates, but the proof is in the pudding. We'll show you those images. They'll come up on screen in a moment. So that was a 40th of a second. Now, if this image stabilization, this in-body stabilization is as good as they say, I'm going to go to twice the duration. That's a 20th of a second. Now folks, what this should give me in my image is the slower I use the shutter speed, the more the illusion of movement happens, which means the striation of the background during the panning shot should look a lot more dynamic. Let's give it a go. Well, folks, that is unbelievable. That is a great result. And like I said, it's not touted to be a typically fast or sports photography camera, but I can certainly see myself using this for your basic panning technique. Actually, I'm enjoying this. I'll just grab a couple more. One of the things I love about living here on the Sunshine Coast is you are never short of finding something to photograph. Look at this lovely old timber dinghy that's just off the shore here. Let's go and have a closer look, folks. Can I tell you one of the things that I just noticed straight away? When I've got my eye to this electronic viewfinder, my gosh, it's like I could almost fall into this viewfinder. It's bright, it's big, it's lovely. It's just amazing. It's got this unique feel about it. It's not like using your traditional little EVF that I've had in the past. That really is quite spectacular. All right, back to this old boat. Great. While we're at it, I'm going to shoot this shot on the other side of the little timber dinghy, shooting in towards the sun. Now what we're doing is really pushing the camera's dynamic range. And I've got to say, this is probably 3:30 in the afternoon. That sun is coming right directly towards us. This is going to be a great example of the dynamic range this camera is capable of. Terrific. Of course, the proof will be in the pudding when we get back and we can look at these on a computer screen, but from what I can see in this brilliant EVF, this camera is terrific with its dynamic range. So of course, if you're going to buy a camera like this, you're obviously buying it for that high resolution image sensor. Now it is a CMOS sensor, which is traditionally extremely good, 51.2 megapixels of resolution. So let's find something of a high textured nature. And I think what we'll end up doing with this image is we'll print it large format, because we all know the proof is in the print. All right, let's go and see what we can find, folks. I'm just capturing a little bit of texture, folks. I intend to blow some of these images up into poster size, and we can really look at texture just for that true sharpness and the contrast. But while I'm experimenting with this, folks, 19 film simulations, which Fuji is quite well known for. They do a whole host of what used to be the old film in the digital simulations. I've just been shooting in the classic chrome here at the moment, but I thought whilst we're here, let's just change that up. I'm going to go into picture image control and into film simulation. So at the moment in classic chrome, a film that I used to like to shoot in personally myself, pro high neg, classic neg, nostalgic neg. Okay, I'm going to give that a try. Oh yes. The warmth that immediately brings to the image just by having that film simulation on. I dare say, folks, I know this is not going to be a camera that the average consumer is going to invest in to want to shoot JPEGs. I think if you invest in a camera like this, you're going to be shooting in the RAW format. But I love these film simulations, and I love the name of that one, nostalgic, and it certainly is. It just looks and feels like film. That'll be a very interesting shot. Now folks, the lens that I'm shooting today is the 35-70. Now remember, we are in a large format. We've gone above the full frame sensor size. So this equates to a 28-55mm. Quite a good, useful walk-around lens focal length, in fact. I'm just going to take one more of those textures nice and close, because I do think I could just about get away with this being a macro shot after I cropped in on it. There we have it, folks. There's the focusing distance of this lens. I'm going to say that wouldn't be more than probably 28 to 35 centimeters away from the subject. Folks, it is amazing when you start to use a camera and you start to think, well, gosh, I really wish I could just change that, or see if I could just change it and make it a little bit more usable for me. But everything just seems to be in a location that's easy to find. The first thing I thought was, gosh, this is a little hard to read, this white lettering on a black format. We hit the button and look, there you go. You can invert that and it happens at a touch of a button. And I was looking at these two buttons here and I thought, well, this is a bit strange. They haven't actually designated. I'm not sure what it is. So am I game enough to push one? Hell yes, I am. And look, there we have the traditional dial set up with the aperture and the shutter. And I hit that one again and I've gone to a histogram. Well, folks, it's not like I had to sit down and do an hour's worth of YouTube study to figure this out. I love the layout of this camera. It's very user-friendly. Folks, what a wonderful afternoon that was. And thanks very much to Fujifilm for giving us one of these cameras before the launch date so we could get this video together for you. Now, folks, look, I'll be honest with you. I've obviously missed out a lot of the high-end specifications, but I'm sure you're going to see a lot of that everywhere. But I hope what we did get through to you this afternoon is I think Fuji have made a medium format sized camera which is now usable as a field camera. It's not a studio or it's not a landscape photographer's tool. It's something that if you really enjoy image quality, if you enjoy great design and the touch and the feel of making great images, I think Fuji have really knocked it out of the park with this particular camera. Now, I can't wait to get home. I'm going to get into the computer. I'm going to have a look at a few of these images. And when I get back to the shop, I'm going to use their large format printer. And we're going to put a couple of large prints together because that's where the proof will be. The proof will be in the print. Folks, thanks for joining us this afternoon. And thank you, Fujifilm, for supplying this camera so that we could bring this little bit of information to you. I've certainly enjoyed it. Folks, please make sure you come into the Garricks stores. We are from the Gold Coast all the way right through to Cairns. This camera is going to be in our stores as of the 3rd of September. And I bet you can't wait to come and have a look at it and you won't be disappointed. All right, folks, thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you again soon. Don't forget to check out, we've got our social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Bye now.